In ancient times, the Kingdom of Judah, a nation formed after the division of the United Kingdom of Israel, took its name from the tribe of Judah, descended from Jacob's son Judah, which means praise of God. This kingdom, often referred to as the Southern Kingdom in contrast to the Northern Kingdom, the Kingdom of Israel, had its capital in Jerusalem. It existed as an independent kingdom, although it experienced periods of vassalage to foreign powers. The kingdom's history is primarily documented in the Hebrew Bible, particularly in the books of Kings and Chronicles, with additional insights from the writings of the prophets and documents from non-Judean rulers. The Kingdom of Judah's foundation can be traditionally dated to the division of Israel and Judah, occurring shortly after the reign of King Solomon, who ruled until 931 to 922 BCE. It's important to note that King David had previously been anointed as King of Judah at Hebron. After Solomon's reign, a conflict arose between his son, Rehoboam, and a northern leader, Jeroboam. Jeroboam, who had served as a labor minister under Solomon, advised Rehoboam to ease the labor requirements imposed by Solomon on the northern tribes, saying they would serve Rehoboam if the burdens were lightened. However, Rehoboam refused this request, leading to a revolt by the northern tribes. While there were political and economic factors at play, the biblical account emphasizes that the division was also spiritually motivated. It was linked to King Solomon's sin of idolatry. The southern kingdom, Judah, was seen as more faithful to God, whereas the northern kingdom tended to tolerate and practice idolatry consistently. Shortly after the division of the United Israelite Kingdom, Judah faced challenges from its neighbors. Egypt, under the rule of Shishak, briefly subjugated Judah, looting the city and the temple. Yet, the damage was not lasting. Over the next 60 years, Judah's kings sought to reassert their authority over the other Israelite tribes. Under King Aviah, they experienced limited success in these efforts. However, during the rule of King Asa, the kingdom faced fierce opposition from King Baasha of Israel. Asa eventually allied with the Aramean kingdom of Damascus. An alliance with the northern kingdom, now under the dynasty of Omri, followed. This alliance faced opposition from a group of prophets who believed it corrupted Judah's religious and moral purity. However, it was a subordinate player in the political landscape, particularly as Israel was eventually conquered by the Assyrians. Despite these political complexities, there were moments of cooperation. For instance, during the rule of Jehoshaphat, the son of Asa, Judah and Israel joined forces in the Battle of Ramoth-Gilead. This alliance was further cemented by a marriage between Jehoram, Jehoshaphat's son, and Athaliah, the daughter of Ahab and Jezebel of Israel. These cooperative ventures extended into areas such as shipbuilding and trade. However, this era was not without its struggles. Power struggles, usurpations, and political instability marked the history of Judah and Israel. Athaliah's coup in Jerusalem made her the first and only ruling queen of Judah. Her devotion to the Phoenician deity Baal caused a counter-coup by the priests of the Temple of Yahweh. The region's political landscape shifted again when the Assyrian Empire emerged as a dominant force. Under King Hezekiah, Judah saw prosperity and underwent religious reforms. Yet, an ill-fated alliance against the Assyrians led by King Sennacherib saw many of Judah's fortified cities fall, except for Jerusalem. Many Judeans were deported, but the city itself was saved due to a plague in the Assyrian army. After Hezekiah's reign, the fortunes of the kingdom declined under King Manasseh, who relaxed his father's religious reforms. Manasseh's son, Amon, offered no improvement. However, under King Josiah, there was a resurgence of religious reforms that emphasized the worship of Yahweh. This led to a purification of the nation and a purge of non-Yahwist priests. The Babylonian threat loomed on the horizon during the reign of Josiah's son, Ahaz. In response to the Assyrian threat, Ahaz called for help from the Assyrians, and they annexed the northern half of Israel. Eventually, the Babylonians gained power, and Judah became a vassal state of Babylon. King Jehoiakim ruled under Babylonian influence, but his reign was marked by continued instability. Jehoiakim's son, Jehoiakim, was dethroned and exiled to Egypt by the Egyptian ruler Necho II. Jehoiakim's eldest son, Eliakim, replaced him, ruling as Jehoiakim. The tides of political control continued to shift, but by 604 BCE, the Babylonians had firmly established themselves in the region. This turbulent period was followed by the rule of King Zedekiah, the last ruler of Judah, Jeremiah urged cooperation with Babylon, seeing it as a divine chastisement for Judah's sins. Nevertheless, other prophets encouraged resistance. The ongoing rebellions eventually led to the siege of Jerusalem in 586 BCE, resulting in the capture, exile, and tragic end of the royal house of David and the kingdom of Judah. Within the rich tapestry of Judah's history, there exists a profound spiritual dimension that underlies its rise and fall. According to the biblical account, Judah's fate is intricately tied to its fidelity to God. The story unfolds as we hearken back to the time of King Solomon's united kingdom. It was a kingdom marked by idolatry, and this very sin served as the harbinger of the kingdom's division. The prophet Ahijah had foreseen this division, and it was set in motion long before Jeroboam, leader of the rebellion in the north, confronted Rehoboam, Solomon's heir, over the oppressive labor policies that had plagued the northern tribes. From this point forward, the kings of Judah would face the spiritual litmus test. They prospered in times of peace and war when they walked in the footsteps of King David and shunned the sins of Jeroboam. Jeroboam's sin, in the eyes of the faithful, wasn't his rebellion against the anointed king, Rehoboam, as this had been prophesied and even endorsed by God through Ahijah. Rather, it was his tolerance of idolatry, the high places presided over by non-Levite priests, and the establishment of temples dedicated to idol worship, notably at Dan and Beth El, which stood just miles north of Jerusalem. In these sanctuaries, golden statues of bull calves were erected. The biblical writers laud several of Judah's kings, yet even the virtuous ones who rid the land of the temples of Baal and tore down the Asherah poles were deemed to have fallen short. They did not go far enough, as they failed to eradicate the high places where unauthorized priests conducted their rites. Even within the capital itself, the exclusive worship of God struggled to take root. Jerusalemites paid homage to the bronze serpent of Moses, and families honored Astarte, the Queen of Heaven, by baking cakes and offering drinks in her name. The spiritual disarray was such that male shrine prostitutes operated not only outside Jerusalem but even within the temple during Josiah's reign. The biblical narrative even recounts instances of human sacrifice, described as something God never commanded nor even conceived. As the story unfolds, we see a Judah that was deemed impure in the eyes of God. Not even the sweeping reforms instigated by King Josiah could avert Judah's fate. The land had to be chastised, its temple destroyed, and its people exiled. Only then would the people of Judah, known henceforth as the Jews, be permitted to return to Jerusalem. There, they would rebuild their temple and await the coming of the Messiah, the true heir of King David. While this biblical account weaves a powerful narrative of divine providence and spiritual struggles, critical scholars offer an alternative viewpoint. They suggest that this sacred history is a construct of religious ideology that emerged centuries after the actual events. A historically accurate account of Judah and Israel must be meticulously distilled from this magnificent work of religious historiography. Various tools, including literary analysis, archaeology, and comparisons with other historical records, often yield a narrative that challenges rather than aligns with the biblical account. For instance, the invasion of Judah by Sennacherib, the Assyrian ruler, provides a stark example of how the biblical and historical records can diverge. While the Bible speaks of God's miraculous intervention saving Jerusalem, Sennacherib's own accounts tell a different tale of successful conquest and plunder. Historical critics of the Bible argue that much of Judah's biblical history is colored to prioritize religious issues. It blends legendary and mythological elements with a strong bias toward the Yahweh-only religious faction in Jerusalem. Critics contend that it exaggerates the perceived wickedness of Canaanite religion, unfairly disparages the northern kingdom, and favors the priestly elite of Jerusalem to the detriment of their religious and geographic rivals. Feminist scholars add that this portrayal of Judah's history stems from male-centric writers who aim to suppress women and goddess worship. This complex historical tapestry also prompts reflection on the ethics and values of the time, which are markedly different from modern sensibilities. Moral judgments against ancient societies are, for many historians, an exercise in anachronism. In the end, this journey through Judah's spiritual dimension and the critical views that intersect with it underscores the intricate interplay of faith, power, and the shifting sands of history in the ancient kingdom of Judah.